Hi, Bethany.
Hi, Aniko.
You are calling in today from an undisclosed location with a cute little furry microphone. What is
Tiny
that?
furry microphone in a hotel. It's a tiny furry microphone.
And we won't say where you are, though it doesn't matter because you'll be back by the time we post this. You travel the country doing science communicating and you're promoting your current book, but
hmm
pretty soon you'll be promoting the new book.
Yes. Brain versus screen. How screen time affects our brains.
Yeah. But we're going to jump right in today. We don't have a ton of time. So we wanted to highlight, I think, a topic that is a pretty hot topic right now. It has been for a while, but I actually think, tell me if you agree with me, that we're actually at another tipping point right now.
I would
So
agree.
for me, like Jonathan Haidt and Anxious Generation were to smartphones and social media,
hmm
Jared Cooney Horvath is
Yeah.
to EdTech and school issued devices. And for those of you that don't know who he is, we'll explain that in a second. But the reason I feel this way is it's like when Anxious Generation came out, where parents were sharing, did you see this? Did you see this?
Yeah.
Because he was being featured so much in the press, right? This is happening again with this
Mhm.
testimony. People are tagging us. They're tagging DopaMind. I'm getting emails. I'm getting texts from parents I know or people we know through the org. So I feel like Jared's everywhere right now,
Oh, yeah.
and the story is being widely covered.
And he just did a
Um,
webinar with the Bounce Project, which I was able to sit in on, which a lot of parents around the country who care sat in on. Sorry, I have a cough drop, so I don't cough this whole time. Um, and that was, it had hundreds of attendees. So it's showing
yeah,
how much parents want to have this discussion right now.
yeah, yeah. So just to set it up, we talk about this in our staff trainings, but one of the ways that we measure student success is what's called a PISA test score, and this is global. So these have been falling for years. And what's interesting is it follows the youth mental health declines that Jonathan Haidt identified in the anxious
Mhm.
generation. So, like the early 2010s. And I've been thinking about this concept as well, which I've been telling to just a few people. And the premise is what I've been thinking a lot about lately is the parents, not so much anymore because we have phone free schools, thanks to Jonathan Haidt's movement, but parents are sending the phones for the schools to deal with, and the
Ooh.
schools are sending the Chromebooks for the parents to deal with.
Oh my
So
God. That's
we've
so
got
good.
this,
That's so good.
yeah, we've got this like mismatch where
Yeah.
because I do the parent ads, I know you do as well, but I've talked to so many parents at this point, and I would say the school issued device and the ed tech is in their top. It's like top three
Oh
complaint
yeah.
every time, and I'm sure you've heard it too.
hmm
So I'm gonna summarize what we were talking about with Jared Cooney Horvath, and then I want to hear from you some of the insights from the webinar you attended because I didn't attend it. So let me just break this down for people that might not know. So Jared Cooney Horvath, he's a neuroscientist. He opened his Senate testimony, and this was recent. This was just last month with one sentence, which was, quote, our kids are less cognitively capable than we were at their age. So pretty powerful and pretty simple way to open that. And
It's super
so
sad.
super sad. So what he talks about is this idea of it's called the Flynn effect. So for most of the 20th century, IQ scores have steadily rose across generations, but in recent decades that trend has flattened and then reversed. And the declines appear strongest in the very cognitive skills that schools are designed to build and support. So working memory, internally driven reasoning are the two areas that he identified. And then there was a study in 2025 that found that teens are still holding their own visual pattern based tasks. So these are the things that modern screen technology fosters here, but they're declining in tasks that require memory, language thinking, the ones that are happening in our own head, basically.
Oh,
And so
interesting.
the key point he makes is it's not that kids are less intelligent. It's not that Gen Z is less intelligent, but it's despite the fact that they actually spend more time in school than any other generation, they're losing what he calls school ability. So these are the cognitive skills that school was designed to build. And then lastly, like just to wrap up, like his point of view and what he speaks about. He doesn't blame teachers. He doesn't blame curriculum. He's actually pointing to the tools. So, screens tend to support cognitive outsourcing. We talk about that a lot in our material rather than deep thinking. And then the other thing is learning requires effort, right? So when learning becomes too smooth, too guided, thinking begins to erode. So that is my setup for who he is, what he has testified for, and now advocating for. And he's everywhere. So I'd love to hear what you have to add.
Well, and I took notes when he was speaking, and he talked on a lot of this. He especially talked about sort of the decline in critical thinking and all of the things that you're mentioning in our kids, which is horrifying. And there was something he was saying I got to find it. He was talking about how tech is supposed to be a tool, right? And how sort of as a society and as an education system, we've become very focused on the tool. And if we teach a kid, I quoted him, if we teach a kid how to use a tool, they will use the tool. But if we teach a kid how to think, learn, and recognize patterns, they can use any tool.
Yes.
That's not what we're doing. We're teaching them how to use the tool in front of them, and then they're lacking the skills to be able to use the world around them, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, that is so true. And it's funny because I've been doing the AI literacy trainings. Those are new. Like at DopaMind, we just launched AI literacy. And I talk about this a lot, which is how quickly tech is evolving. And it always has been, but it especially will now, right? So by the time we teach a kid coding, I'll just use one example. I mean, that's probably going to be significantly changed and or potentially gone within the course of a year or 2 years, right? So I think this premise that he brings is particularly important in the time of rapid technological advancement that we're dealing with right now. So yeah, we're talking about EdTech and, I think school issued devices today, but I think this really applies to AI as well, as along with the cognitive offloading that we set up. So, but it's so true. Like,
well, and that's something we were talking about with how we're using the AI literacy presentations that we want to bring into schools. But because there's a temptation to be like, well, how do we teach them to use the tool better? As opposed to like, I don't know if we were saying like, we don't know that we want to do that so much as ask them to think critically about the tool.
Totally.
Because those are the skills, right?
Yeah. And I know you know this, but I wanted to give people maybe a few points from our teacher staff training that relate to EdTech. And again, please respond to them or add to them. But one of the things we talk about is this concept of paper versus pixel. So you remember that, right? So, absolutely. And I know you and I are big physical book people. That's something we share in common. But there's actually science behind this. So research does show that print reading outperforms digital when it comes to comprehension. So reading comprehension specifically. So our brains, and the reason for this, and this is, just what I've read, but has been supported by research as well. Our brains are actually wired for the physical landscape of a book, right? We're still tactile 3D creatures. And so like, in the training, we talk about like there's a topography to the book. There's 4 corners. There's pages you can see, how far you are, things like that. You can't get that from a digital text. So those are just some examples of what I mean by the physical topography of a book. And then there's a statistic here. So nearly 2/3 of educators say that EdTech has hurt kids' social emotional development. So there's that piece of it as well. Then we can talk about distraction. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to hop in about the reading because Dr. Jared Cooney Horvath, he talked about this in his wellness, what was it? Webinar. I was like, wellness seminar, kind of. And he was talking about the spatial aspect of reading, which is what you're talking about. And we talk about that in our training. And, the research, it reinforces that things on paper, you will have better attention span, you'll have better retention, and you'll have better comprehension. And he was saying how he likes to play video games. And he talked about games like, he said Grand Theft Auto, but it makes me think of Legend of Zelda, how they put a tiny map in the corner of the page. And that's because our brains sort of need those borders of things in order to stay interested and like to keep our attention span and to be able to comprehend what we're taking in. But when you're scrolling through something you're reading online, if you can't see the end, after a very short amount of time, you just start to skim because your brain needs to know, when is this going to end? Am I going to be doing this forever? And then he talked about writing physically, which I don't know if I'm jumping too far ahead.
No, you're good.
But he was saying writing physically, they call deep notes, handwritten notes.
Yeah.
Because you have to parse out the meaning and what's important, because you can't handwrite at the speed that someone's talking to you or the speed that you're taking the information in. Whereas shallow notes, notes that you take while typing, you can go much faster than you can think. So you tend to just sort of be parroting what's said. So most people, when they've handwritten notes, they've taken the bits and pieces and they're comprehending and they're, making it make sense in their mind, and they're thinking at the speed that they're taking notes. But when he asked students, okay, well, what do your notes say? They go, I don't know. I got to go back and read them. They just kind of, we don't retain it. It's wild.
Yeah. And I don't know if anybody's going to be watching or if they're just listening, but I just want to show you this. Do you see this? This is what I do.
Notes.
Yes. So I just recorded an expert podcast before you. There's your notes. But I will say, and this is anecdotal, but it's supported by what you're saying. When I write something down, I remember it, and it's what you're talking about. And I don't know if he talks about this, but for me, I'm also very visual. So I almost have like a photographic memory of what I've written as well. So yeah, that definitely it is the paper versus pixel as well. Like there's so many things about that. And then the next point, and I don't know if he talked about this, I think he does, but distraction.
Yeah.
Kids are like drowning in digital distraction. And the statistic that we use is that attention spans have dropped 69%. This is since 2004. So, a good amount of time. And then this is from a Common Sense report that's pretty recent. Teens get 237 notifications a day, a quarter of those during the school day, which is one of the reasons why phone-free schools is essential. And there are over 60 studies linking screen time to less sleep and later bedtime. So that's just kind of going back to just how much of this digital stuff that they're having to keep up with. And one of the biggest complaints in the parent eds, and it's about EdTech in general, but it's also about, I'd love to get my kid off of their school device 1 or 2 hours before bedtime, but I can't. The teachers are assigning homework. Their teachers are assigning reading. I mean, my school administrators love me, but I'm always the one saying, hey, can we just get the textbook? And I did that recently with my 7th grader because I noticed it was taking him forever to read. They had those e-textbooks. It's taking forever to read like 5-10 pages. And immediately I was like, he's getting distracted. Like there's just no way it should take this long. So I asked, can we get the physical textbook? We did. And sure enough, like he's able to now focus on that textbook without having the entire internet, there at his disposal. So distraction's another big one.
I mean, we get distracted, and we have a fully formed prefrontal cortex and amygdala. We're like, oh, I'm going to check my email. And my son will say to me, Mom, did you fall in an Instagram hole? I'm like, yes, I did. You caught me.
Yes, it's so funny. But yeah, like to add to that, and this is something, again, I hear lots of complaints about. I have this in my house for sure. Parents were having a hard time in schools too, keeping our kids focused on those legitimate school tasks, right? On those connected devices. Because if you know that the internet and anything else you want is just one tab away, how are you going to focus on math, right? When you know that you can get to YouTube, which frankly is available on many school issued devices.
Well, and this was something interesting because people were asking, Holly from Balance Project asked Dr. Horvath, so are there good examples of EdTech or good examples of ways we can make the tech good? And he was saying that the tech needs to be locked down. It needs to have one purpose, and it can't go on the internet. He said that there are systems, like my sister is a surgeon and she uses something, I think it's called the Da Vinci. And it is a system that does one thing. It doesn't let her also go on YouTube and check her email because she has to do surgery.
That's right.
He was saying like, we needed to have one task. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is, the purpose of being a learning tool.
Yeah, sorry, because I get really excited about this stuff. But I mean, one simple fix, and I've been using this as a tip as well to parents, like just turn off the internet. Like, why do we need to have internet-based tools for kids? Like, it is literally impossible for them to stay on task when they can get to anything they want. And I will say, I give some schools are better than others, but I do give the tech people inside of schools a lot of credit because they do work hard to lock them down, which is what you're describing. But it's impossible to fully lock them down. It is literally impossible. Even the best tools like GoGuardian is the one that most schools use. That's the standard. Like, it is a game of whack-a-mole. In our school in particular, and this is for many of them, the same issue. It's the free video games, right? There's thousands of free video game sites out there. When the administration finds them, yeah, they lock them down, but then the kids find a new one and then they share it with each other. And it just goes on and on. It's a giant game of whack-a-mole. And I just don't understand why it's something a game that they want to play. Like, it would kind of like, it makes our lives easier as parents if we give less. Like, wouldn't it be easier for the schools to give less? Because it's less to manage and less issues to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
but I love that idea of like, yeah, they need to do less, because that is another tip I give parents. And I've just been preaching this mantra, which is less is more, later is better. So the less you give, the easier it is to manage. The later you give it, generally the healthier it is for the kid, right? So
and in that less is more world, it's that idea of having an educational tool, if it is a tech tool, that just does one thing. Just does one thing really well. He said, and I wrote it down, he said, a Swiss Army knife can do many things, but none of them very well. And modern EdTech is trying to do so many things at once that it's like, look at all the things it can do, but none of them, like, do you really want to build a house with a Swiss Army knife? No, and we're building children.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. And so the other thing I want to cover, and again, this is in a lot of our material that we teach to staff, are just some of the liabilities that I don't think that schools think about very much, but these are things that happen all the time. And so the first piece is what we call content harm. So harmful content, age inappropriate media consumption on school issued devices and personal devices too. But again, we're doing better with phones, phone-free schools now as kind of a movement. That's
Did you happen to
in
see
schools.
Nikki Petrosi of Scrolling to Death? She put up, this is a little old, she put it up a while ago, but she went on her very small child's iPad that was school issued on the school campus and found like cutting content instantly. She was on it for like 2 minutes.
Yep. No, she's talked about that. I mean, she's one of our contributing experts and she's been awesome on this podcast. So I totally remember that. There's a million anecdotes. I don't think we have great data on this. I mean, I've personally experienced this many times with my kids. Same. And so it's just rampant. And there have been lawsuits filed. I mean, you can Google and find them over all kinds of things, but specifically kids viewing even things like pornography at school, sometimes on the school issued iPad. So, and again, I don't really blame the administrators for this so much because these tools are not made to be locked down.
Yeah.
And you can try, but there's always loopholes, there's workarounds, and kids are super smart. And I've heard a million of these stories too, but there's things like, and I don't want to give kids ideas, but whatever, they're going to find better ones anyway, but you can, like, let's say the school says you can't have phones or text or whatever, but you can have Google. So kids are opening up Google Docs, sharing them with each other, and then chatting on the Google Doc. I've heard stories of kids downloading YouTube videos, because you can download YouTube videos with third-party software, putting them into a PowerPoint, right? And then looking at them in class inside the PowerPoint, right? So even if YouTube was blocked. So, I mean, those are just like a couple of examples, but yeah, kids are going to work around your controls, basically. And I say that to parents as well with the iPhones and the iPads and everything else. So,
and these tools weren't designed for kids. They were designed for and tested on adults. And we're just handing them all these devices for so many hours. They're at school for so many hours. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. And then like the last piece of liability that I wanted schools to think about, and I know they do already, because it's the main thing that when I get to talk to school leaders that they complain to me about, which is the drama from group chats. So it's not just cyberbullying, but it's leaving kids out. It's just all the kind of things that kids do that can be very mean-spirited. that are rampant on those group chats, but then they are coming into school and the deans are having to deal with them.
One of the schools, I'm in New England right now visiting schools. One of the schools I visited, they said that before they went phone free, they tried to go, and they were K through 8th, this school. Before phone free, they tried to do, you can have it at lunch, and then it had to be locked away. And what would happen is at lunch, everyone would see what had been posted the night before or whatever, and fights would break out because they knew they only had so much time. So they would have these huge reactions, and they were having a lot of like physical altercations and yelling. They removed the phones entirely, and that's all gone away.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And what you just said is key too, because a lot of these fights they're starting on social media and group chats are actually translating into physical fights in school. So yeah, those are just some of the liabilities. And again, I think it's important to remember that you can remove the phones, which is obviously something that I was going to say something we all agree with. I mean, there's some parents that don't agree with it, but we can talk about the reasons why they don't agree with it. It's usually a very loud minority, but generally we all agree phones don't belong in a school day, right? So we can remove them. But what's happening is kids are offloading a lot of those activities onto the school issued or the school required devices. It's just so tricky. And I wish there was a way to fully lock them down. But even the schools that do a really good job, they all have issues with it. It's just kind of the nature of the beast. So
following the court case, which Scrolling to Death is doing an amazing job of with Heat Initiative, the big Kaylee versus Meta, basically to I don't remember the full title of the case, but the case in LA right now, a lot of Kaylee, the girl who's at this, taking on Goliath, she talks about all the different ways when her phone was taken away that she would get to YouTube and get to Instagram and she had systems. Nothing was stopping her. And this was a couple years ago. So it was very interesting to hear like, oh, there was literally no getting this away from her if there was any sort of internet enabled device near her.
Yeah. So that would be beautiful if they could figure out how to use this technology and make it closed, like what you're describing with did you say it was your sister or the person that was doing? Yeah.
Dr. Horvath mentioned it. And then, my sister, when she does surgery, that's all the thing does.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes sense. It's so
funny.
We
don't want her to get texts in the middle of your, hysterectomy.
Yeah.
Did we not?
Yeah. It's funny because you know this because you teach the parent ed too. We talk about the trend we call it segmented tech, but it's this idea that now, so the iPhone became the all-in-one, right? Where it's the Swiss Army knife metaphor, I guess. But now that we know about digital wellness and people are just starting to see how difficult it is to have the all-in-one, we're going back to this idea of different tech for different things, right? Yeah. So at my house, we use a calendar. It's digital, but all it does is calendar. So I can sync it to my phone calendar, but my kids, all they're seeing is a calendar, right? So they can't do anything on it, whatever. So that's just one example. Ebook readers are another, right? But it's almost like we're going backwards in a way to go forwards, right? Because the all-in-one is just so hard to manage.
Well, and I think that means that we've learned something, right? That means that we can say, hey, this isn't working, and we're listening to our minds and our bodies and our kids, and this isn't working. That's part of being a smart person, honestly, instead of being like, let's just keep doing this and we all feel terrible.
Yeah. So maybe we can end with maybe a few tips for educators if they would listen to us.
One thing I did want to say, one thing that I thought was really interesting that Dr. Jared Cooney Horvath said. He said, where is it? EdTech offloads the work and friction needed to recognize patterns. We make learning so easy that they don't need to struggle, and the friction and struggle of cognition is the learning.
That's right.
But that was really interesting. And he continued that with, where's the other thing I wrote? Tools are a method of offloading effort, but a tool is only as good as what you bring to it. If an idiot with a tool will still be an idiot. The tool won't teach him how to not be an idiot.
Yeah, that's good.
And human biology is the same that it's been for 150,000 years. And there are hard links to biology that decide what will and will not work for deep learning. And those are not negotiable. Yeah. This is the hardware we're working with. So I thought that was all really fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, we're stealing our kids' struggle, right? With all of these things and kind of tech in general. Whether you talk about ed tech like we're talking about today, or whether you talk about like digital tethering, where they can text you or call you when any little thing doesn't go their way, right?
Yeah.
So yes, to struggle, to make mistakes, all of that stuff is to learn, and teachers know this. I just, for some reason, I don't think that they've connected the dots to the ed tech kind of taking that from
I think the
kids.
teachers have. I think it's a higher up people who are not in the classroom, because
Yeah.
what EdTech does do is make administration and parents' lives easier in that they can get quick
Sure.
grades and quick data.
Yeah.
But the learning in the classroom for the teachers who could readily adapt if a kid's a little behind or a kid's a little ahead, the teachers are losing that because they have to use so many hours in front of the screen. And the teachers are the ones who know how to teach our kids.
Yeah. Yeah. And before we get to tips, maybe we'll make one more point, which I think I called him Jared. I'm so casual. I called him Jared, but Dr. Horvath said he brings this up as well, which is EdTech is big business. Like this is, and we say this in our teacher training, just like we want kids to be good critical thinkers about the tech they use. We want the administrators and the teachers to be good critical thinkers about the tech they use. And so, and these are just like a couple, like one statistic that to me that really sticks out is funding for EdTech tripled during the pandemic, which made sense, right? We had to invest in all these things
were
and
all
kids were at
drowning.
home and everything. Yeah. But if you look at the charts, and I say this all the time with screen time as well. So the chart went up like this during the pandemic. We didn't adjust back down to 2019 levels, right? We kept going on that trajectory. So it was understandable that we invested in all this. But somebody said this to me recently, I think it was Ash Brandon, who is an amazing educator, and they've written books about managing video games and things like that, which is, it's not that I'm not sure. I can't remember. I think it's called Power On.
Power
But
on.
anyway, they said that very simply, schools aren't made of money, right? And it's not like we have so much money to be throwing at schools, and schools have invested billions and billions of dollars in this infrastructure, the Chromebooks, the iPads, the training of the teachers, like all of it. So I get it. It's not so easy to change course, especially schools I call them cruise ships, right? Like, especially the bigger districts, like to turn them around is not easy, right?
Yeah.
So I get it. But we also teach them, yes, because one of the questions we get in parent eds is, well, are educational games better, right? And my answer is always, yeah, I guess they're considered healthier, right? But they're often gamified, right? Like even a system like IXL is gamified, even though maybe it's not fast paced or the things that you would think about, right? When we think about quick dopamine activities, but they're delivering ongoing dopamine rewards, right?
Yeah.
So even without struggle. So they're similar to the tech that we've identified as more problematic and people have gotten on board with as more problematic. In the same way, I mean, there's certain apps that I just say, no, you're not using that to my son, because I literally see it. And it's like, it's just a video game. And then they'll study for 2 minutes and then they'll give them 10 minutes of video game, study for 2 minutes, 10 minutes of video game. Like those ones,
I had to tell the elementary school my kiddo went to, Prodigy could just not be a thing. Because we did our own little audit at home, and there would be like 2 math problems and then 16 minutes of just playing a nonsense game in which ads were being shown the whole time. Some of them were wild.
Yeah.
Like half naked ladies that he's seeing at school in like 4th grade. It was wild.
Yeah. We haven't talked about that, but I mean, well, maybe we'll jump to tips, because that is actually one of my tips, and I will bet that version of, oh my gosh, I can't even say it. Prodigy.
Yeah.
Prodigy. I'll bet that version was unpaid, right? The one that you were using. Okay.
Yeah, and then they keep doing ads saying, pay to join, pay to join.
Yes. So one of my tips that I give to schools is no freemium, please. Like, I get it that we're strapped for money when it comes to schools, and there's so many great free teaching resources, videos, educational games, but ads. So if it's free, if it's free, you're going to get ads. Like there's just no way around that. And I have personally encountered this. I've talked to probably every mom I've talked to about this has encountered this inappropriate ads coming through. Like I'm talking about pornographic style ads coming through. And this happened, I think my son was in 3rd or 4th grade at the time.
Yeah.
From a freemium, like, hey, I want to practice typing at home game that they had us do at home, right?
Wow.
So please, 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 no freemium. You're going to get ads. I've had things where I've been inside of a school and again, you know, on a smart board. So not necessarily where the kids were having access themselves. Maybe a teacher was showing or using YouTube to like for a music playlist or something. And I literally saw it, the comment sections were live and kind of streaming in. There was swearing, there was trash talking, there was like every horrible behavior, internet troll behavior you can think of in that comment section. So there's that. And then, of course, there's algorithms. So one of the things that is a huge struggle, and again, my rule of thumb to schools would be just no YouTube. I'm sorry. I know that there's a lot of great, useful things on there, but you can't avoid the algorithm. So yes, you can lock down certain search terms and kids will likely not find harmful content on a lockdown school device. But if they've searched for anything on Google that they might like, you know, or be interested in or be shopping for, whatever, you go to YouTube and it's going to feed you the algorithm of what it knows and that you like. And that is not something we want on school computers, right? So I know I've just ranted, but do you like that rule? No freemium?
No freemium. And if they want to get the information of the YouTube video, you can like remove the videos and take them and show them in a controlled environment where you're not. I always think it's wild when I go to schools and they'll put on, you know, something on YouTube for music, but then you see on the side all their suggested videos and sometimes things that like, I don't want to know this much about you.
Yeah. Like you mean things that the teachers looked up personally?
Or, you know, because usually there's suggested videos on the side of the video you're watching.
Yeah.
And so it's all geared towards them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes, you know, it's like Bridgerton's steamiest scenes and things. And you're like, why is that what they're looking? What?
I think it's so funny that people don't realize that is telling.
Yeah.
And that
it's really interesting.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Something, so you have another tip?
I have another rule, but you go. I want you to go.
So something I thought was really good from Dr. Horvath is he was saying, Balance Project asked, hey, what do we do if we think like EdTech's too much? And you and I were saying, you know, don't we have forms on our website that they can access that help them talk to their school about it?
You know who does? We don't have that specifically, but Nikki, who you've talked about, scrolling to death, she has that on her site because she fought this battle inside her district, and I think her kids are public school, so that's even doable there, where she figured out how to opt out. So she's got those resources, but
Dr. sometimes suggested. So he said create a coalition. So it's not just Bobby's mom and Andrew's mom. It's, we're a coalition of, you know, Anderson school parents who are upset about this or not upset, but are interested in this.
Yeah.
And ask for a tech audit. Ask for data on the efficacy of all the tech being used in the school. Ask for how much time is spent on task, how much time is spent off task, how much has been gained in test scores, how much has been lost in test scores. And until that tech audit is completed, to ask for a tech moratorium. You can't spend any more money in any new tech until we know what has happened so far, what the data is with the tech that we're already using, which I feel like is totally reasonable.
Yeah.
And he said at a school he went to, they pushed back on this, being like, dude, we can't get rid of it. We just spent $200,000 changing to digital books. We can't. And he said, run the audit and tell me how much it would be to continue on the path you're on. And so $200,000 was their estimate to get the actual textbooks back in the classroom instead of going fully digital. According to the tech audit, all of their subscriptions and programs and everything was closer to $700,000.
Yeah.
So they're spending more.
It kind of reminds me of, I don't know if you're familiar with Prof G. but he's doing this movement pushing back on big tech and subscriptions specifically. You know how we have like a million subscriptions and we don't even know we have them. And when you add them up, it's probably more than what we were paying before for like the best cable TV, right? Yeah. So I think there's a similar thing happening with schools where they're like, oh, it's only a little bit here and there. But yeah, I think if they were to add them up, they would find that it's probably not more cost effective. And then I'd be very curious about test scores because we know on a bigger scale that test scores are declining, and you can look at the charts and they align with when we moved forward with school issue devices, EdTech, things like that. I'd be very curious.
That one of the studies says it takes about 6 minutes per hour kids on a screen can keep their attention span going.
Yeah, that makes sense.
24 to 38 minutes, they will be totally off task, I think is what it was. And then everything else is kind of data we don't really know. That's crazy. 6 minutes?
Yeah. Yeah, sounds about right, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's really good to know. And yeah, for sure, banding together is a huge thing we tell parents all the time, whether it comes to delaying, if you want to do that, if you want to delay smartphones or social media, the more parents that it's like another collective action problem. It's the same thing, right? Where I can be the annoying, I call myself phone Karen, just lovingly, or tech Karen. I can be tech Karen and always be the one speaking out about this, but they're going to eventually be like, oh, there's tech Karen again. But if I have Bethany, if I have, 20 other moms or dads, whatever, that are on the same page, obviously that is a much different story, right?
I do think that's something that Balance Project is great about with collective action.
For sure.
You can create a group. What do they call the group within it? There's a word for it. You can create a group on their 4Norms website where you can find people in your neighborhood and in your school so that you can make sure you're all speaking the same language and creating the environment and community that you want.
For sure. Yeah. But those are great things to ask for. And I don't see why a school wouldn't want to know if this is working, right? Like this is something they should be doing anyway. But I think it's just like we did with phones and kids, right? We just kind of jumped in and hoped for the best, right? Yeah. And in that situation, we're uncovering the effects of that. I think the same thing's happening with EdTech. So, so I have two more tips, and then we can wrap unless you have any more tips. But this is a big one because I've heard parents complain about this specifically, which is suggesting tech introduction or use at home is like a huge friction point. So for example, I had a personal friend, but I've heard this from other parents just in my parent eds and things like that, where a school or teacher will say, oh, you should probably just get an Apple Watch so that, you can stay connected. Like if your plans change for pickup or whatever. And big no, right? You never want to. It's like you gave the best metaphor, which I still use. Do you remember what it was? It's like giving someone a puppy.
You're not going to give somebody else's kid a puppy for their birthday.
Right.
Don't do that to a family.
Yeah. So I love that. And by the way, I still use that in the parent eds. But please don't do that. Like it's hard enough for us as parents to manage like the legitimate quote unquote ed tech, but to on top of that, layer on, any kind of like personal
Your
tech
parents should have given you a pony. What are you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Please don't do that, teachers and educators. And then lastly, I think I covered this already, but big one for me, just no YouTube. I think we beat up on YouTube quite a bit, but speaking of the case this week, I mean, Google and YouTube are part of that case in LA right now. They're on trial for addiction. So you can't turn off the algorithm. And let's just look at like COPA, which is Kids Online Privacy Protection Act, which is from 1998, before any of this was invented, which makes me crazy. But if we just look at that alone, the age rating is 13 plus. 13. Yeah. There's no kid at all under 13 that should be required to use YouTube for school. So that would be some good ammunition, like if parents want to push back. I think it's probably okay if teachers use it on the smart board. Hopefully being mindful of any previous algorithmic recommendations that might be embarrassing or inappropriate. but yeah, like those are my big ones. But like the last thing I would say, and again, this is coming from tech Karen, so take it with a grain of salt. I do think you can push back. I do think it's all about the tone, and the way you ask really matters, and kind of put it on you like, hey, we're a slow tech family, or we're a low tech family. Can we do paper for this? Like I've done this ever since my kids were little. 100% of the time, teachers have been very, very agreeable. And they're like, sure, no problem. You can print this out, or let me give you a sheet instead of iExcel. I think they're more receptive than you'd think. So what do you think?
No, I agree. And you know, it's so hard because I know there are times when I should just print out his homework, and instead I'm like, it's so much easier if you just.
Yeah.
But my husband's been really good for that, because our kiddo was having some trouble with math. And Mike's like, I honestly think it's because he's looking at it on the screen. So he's not really thinking about it. He's trying to rush through it. Yeah. So Mike would just take out paper, and they do it on the paper. And the moment they started doing that at home, he's like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, oh man, paper.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's like all these things, a little more work for us in the beginning, but I think it saves you time eventually, right? Because it's actually, the homework will go faster if you put in that little bit of effort. The reading will go faster. And I realize I have the privilege to be able to afford to buy the book. Like, let's just put that out there. But if you can do that, and you can say, hey, what are the textbooks that they need? I'll just buy them, And that way you're not demanding the school do something necessarily. You're kind of saying, how can I help? And how can I be part of the solution? I think that's a really good way to come at it as well. But I just want to say, I think everybody's on board and everybody's receptive. I think we're just at the point where, again, we've identified an issue, but at this point, we're a little unsure about what to do about it. Right. So I think we're at that moment of the tipping point.
And we all have 70 jobs, and poor teachers are drowning. They just keep putting more and more and more on teachers.
Yeah.
Our kids are so busy. Parents are so busy. So we all just approach each other with like, hi, you doing good? Checking in.
Yeah.
Here's how I'm going to help you, and you're going to help me to make this better for our kids.
Yeah. I promise. I mean, I've never heard of a case where they're not receptive. I mean, maybe if you come at it with more that kind of aggressive, combative tone, maybe. But I that's where I would leave it. I would just say we are at a tipping point. I think you agree. And for all the parents that have been frustrated, and I know there's a lot of us, I do think things are changing. And sorry, one more thing. I know I keep saying one more thing. Sweden has already reversed this. I talk about this a lot, but they've done all the research, and I know we're not Sweden in the United States. We never will be, but they're but they're going back to textbooks. They're doing government-wide standards and guidelines for parents to help them navigate this issue. But they're pulling the EdTech out because they've studied it and they've seen that it is hurting their test scores and their kids' success. Again, I think we're probably going to be behind that, but I think we can create maybe little mini movements and start to move forward in a way that I think would work better for everyone. And maybe not everybody sees it, but I mean, at least maybe it's the parents that come to our parent eds. I don't know, but it's widespread.
That's how things happen, right? Nobody changes the world. There was a great Kurt Vonnegut commencement speech about this. He told all the kids who were graduating, none of you are going to change the world if you think that the world's like a light bulb and you go out and change it. The way that you change the world is you go into your community, you find the needs, you help meet them. And if everybody does that, the world gets changed. Yeah. So that's what's exciting, is that we are here to meet each other and to meet each other's needs and to support each other and to get behind each other and help push. And we're already doing that, right? All these movements. Yeah. So that's the exciting part. Now, everyone put down your phone and let's go read a real book.
Right. Okay. And we're going to stop talking. So if you haven't heard it, just Google it. It's the Senate testimony of Dr. Jared Cooney Horvath. I highly recommend you listen to it if you haven't. And
he has a book. I haven't read it yet. I believe it's called The Digital Delusion.
Yes. Yeah. I know it's on my list too, but we'll have to pass that one around. All right. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Aniko. Bye.
Bye.